Hi everyone, my name is Gianni Johnson, and I'll be doing my Poet Laureate presentation on Natasha Trethewey's Native Guard. When I first got this book, I wasn't sure about it. I wasn't sure if I was going to be into it or like it, and I have to say, as soon as I started reading it, it grabbed me. I read it in one sitting, I couldn't put it down, and I instantly understood why she's a poet laureate and why this book won a Pulitzer Prize. It's truly an amazing work. To talk about this work of poetry, you have to basically break it down into three parts because it was written in three, and kind of look at it for each part. But I just wanted to note that the quote at the beginning is by Charles Wright, and that quote is Memory is a cemetery. I visited it once or twice, white, ubiquitous, and set aside, everywhere underfoot. When I first read that, I was like, why would she start this work with that quote? It's kind of a weird choice. But as you go into it, you realize that that was a very fitting quote because this book deals a lot with memory and a lot with death. And I can understand why she would put that memory as a cemetery and set aside, ubiquitous. It's and everywhere underfoot. It's very fitting. You have to read the poem to really get it. The next thing I wanted to note was that the first poem, I think it's even before part one begins, is called Theories of Time and Space. And I thought that was a nice fit also because her book takes you through time and space. She's taking you around time. She takes you from her childhood to the present day to the Civil War era. She rips you back into present day and then back to her childhood. And you're going from different cities in Mississippi, and she's kind of flinging you back and forth. But at the same time, it flows very well and it's easy to follow. It's not there was never a time when I felt lost or confused. She does a really good job, holding our hand and taking us through this journey with her. With that said, the different parts. Part one, she is experiencing the death of her mother. And she does that by telling us memories that she has with her mother. She tells us about the pain that she's feeling and the loss. She takes us to the funeral. She shows us the grief that she was feeling and the depression and the spiraling of and just the madness. And then at the end of part one, she kind of returns back to the world of the living and she kind of starts to observe the world around her again and to be like, okay, I'm back. And the whole of part one is told in beautiful figurative language. She uses metaphors and even some of her poems are metaphors. The whole poem is a metaphor for a character, a person in her life, or she has a poem about the blues, which is told in with blues elements. Just truly beautiful, the first part. I really loved it. The second part is about the past. It's about the past of the South, the past of America, the past of Mississippi. And there she's showing us just the Civil War. She's showing us the suffering and the racial issues Black people faced during the Civil War and especially after the Civil War. When the war was over, slavery was abolished, sorry. She's showing us that it was still just terrible for people. Children were forced to work to the death, they were hungry and starving and people who are, oh man, she has a poem about a flood that happened and just the mercy that people, just the mercy people were at in that time era. If you were black in that time era, it was pretty crazy. She tells us all in very beautiful poetic language and clever ways. She uses metaphors and she uses just amazing storytelling to really paint a picture for us. The last part of her work is all it brings it all together. In the last part, she shows us, so she showed us the present day and what she was dealing with, the pain of her mother, the death of her mother. She shows us the past, Mississippi, slavery, Civil War, Reconstruction. Last part, she shows us how the notions of the past, the beliefs of the past, the traditions, the racial tension and problems of the past, how it affected her childhood and her birth, her upbringing, just everything, how it all matters. And we find out that she's biracial. Her mother's black, her father's white, and they basically broke the law to be together. And that life and that it wasn't easy. Every day was a struggle. That even her own birth, her mother's, she shows us her mother's pregnancy and how the worries her mother faced, just the beliefs of the time that, oh, your baby is a monster, she's going to be a monster. She describes life of being biracial in the racially charged South, how she realized her life was a crime, her existence was a crime, it was, monstrous, and how she had to face just horrible things like attacks from the KKK. And she reminds us in the end that, there's things that all these things happened and are happening, and she will never forget the Native Guard, the black trooper soldiers who died fighting in the Civil War, and the many soldiers who will never, ever be remembered or recognized, because that's not how the South does it. And basically, she's tying it all together. She's showing us how things are in Mississippi. And, and the way she does it is so beautiful. She's not angry about it. She's not, telling us to change anything or calling us to action. But she is just painting a picture for us to look at and for us to kind of come to our own conclusions. And her poems are filled with such vivid imagery that picture is vivid when you read it. The metaphors are just beautiful. We can really understand what she's saying. And we're just kind of left with this really human piece of work. I felt like I was reading just I was really getting a glimpse into humanity, into the beautiful parts and the ugly parts, and just, it was just beautiful work. So I definitely would suggest this work to anybody who likes poetry, and even to people who don't. Wasn't too hard to read. I mean, you can look into each poem and find deeper meanings, but just on the surface, it was pretty easy to understand. And like I said, there's metaphors, deep metaphors in a lot of the poems that really just really blew my mind when I looked at it. Like Genus Narcissus, oh man, the play on words she used, phenomenal. And Photograph, Ice Storm, that whole poem was a literal memory, Let me see a couple other good ones. Graveyard Blues, that whole poem, she literally used the blues elements in it to make that poem. That poem could literally be a blues song. Let's see. Oh, Myth. The poem Myth. The structure of it was crazy. It was like a mirror structure. She told her poem, and then she told it backwards, and it deepened the meaning of the whole poem. Like, that whole poem was about her descending into depression, into this debilitating, consuming depression after her mother's death. And by telling the poem and then telling it backwards, it enhanced that meaning. And we really got to see, like, oh, she's trapped in this whirlpool of emotion. It was intense. All of these poems are just great. So if you ever have time, if you didn't get a chance to read Native Guard, I would definitely highly suggest it. Thank you so much for watching my video. Have a good day.